Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brody Consulting Group. To get more information about our publishing and coaching services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Lori Titus, author of Soul Bonded. Lori, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Are you ready to get started?
Yes.
All right, let's get to it. Question number 1. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I would say find a good editor, and if you do find someone that works well with you, try to stick with that person. That is something that I was lucky enough to do at the beginning of my career. Was I found a really good editor, and except for the times when either she was busy with other projects or she had more than one from me, I've pretty much stayed with her throughout my career. I think it's a big help, and it helps you not only to make your book look good, but it helps you to grow as a writer too. When you have someone who is aware of your own little idiosyncrasies and things that you do, they can point those out to you, and you can, correct those and pick up on them a lot quicker than you would with someone who's just new to your work each time you get a book done.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I was very lucky and found my editor 3 years ago when I wrote my first book, and Devin's done an amazing job. And the great thing is that, we're friends, so she understands my tone, my style. She's attended some of my seminars in the past. So it was a great fit because several of the books that I did were based on motivational seminars that I give. So she understood the tone, the voice, and I've stuck with her for all 13 of my books and have recommended her to quite a few of my clients. And it's so great when you can find that editor who just gets it. You know what I mean?
Exactly, because there's some people that they might be great for someone else, but they just might not be as good a fit for you. Or even if they're a good, competent fit, maybe they're not the person that is the best fit for you. Some people can tell you, well, hey, you mentioned this thing in chapter 3, and now, you seem like you sort of dropped it. What happened to that there? Or like you were saying with your editor, since she goes and listens to you, maybe she'll say, you know what, there was this one thing that you mentioned in your speech that I don't see here in the manuscript. Where is that?
Exactly.
So those things are very important for helping you get the best presentation for your work.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say there's 3 cores that you have to have for a book before you even get started. One is having a great looking book cover. The second thing is having a compelling book description. And the third thing is having a well-edited book.
Yep, that's it.
Well, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think probably the hardest part is trying to figure out how you want to do it. There's so many venues for publishing these days. Some people are indie, some people are traditional. Some people do a mix of both, depending on, what kind of book they're publishing at the time. So there's really a lot of ways to go about it, and I think it can probably be a little scary for people when they first start getting out there and trying to figure out what is the difference, between doing it one way or the other. And once they figure that out, well, what platforms do you want to have your book on? And do you want to make it exclusive to one place, or what's the difference between having it on, a limited platform as to going wide, and will that be better or worse for you? So there's a lot of different intricacies to the business, and the business is always changing too.
Yeah, there's always a constant evolution for sure with that. And which way did you go in regards to your publishing? Did you go with the traditional publisher? Did you do it yourself? What was your method?
Well, I started out with an indie publisher, and, they were a small brand, and it worked for me for a while, but I quickly learned that I wanted to have more independence when it came to things like choosing book releases and covers. There was one cover for my first book that I was really not happy with, but I didn't feel comfortable telling the publisher that because it was my first book. So there were a lot of things that went into my decision to go indie. So I've been an independent author for a writer now, and sometimes, depending upon the project, I will go with a publisher for an anthology or maybe for a particular book. But I really tend to enjoy that I can put things out on my own schedule and, have that authority to say, well, I like this cover or I don't, and pick who my editors are. All of those things are sort of just given to you when you're with a publishing company, and it's great if you have the synergy with them where they pick things that you like, but if they don't, then that can be a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's one thing I always tell my clients, the ones that I help get published, is that they have the control over it. We will give them designs, but at the end of the day, it's they get to choose. Because when I was starting out
Right.
myself, I want to have total creative freedom with that, because that is the one drawback about traditional publishing. There's a lot of great things about it, but some of the challenges are you do lose that creative freedom, and you can potentially lose your cover, your launch strategy. There's so many different things that you want to be able to hold on to, because if you have a system, it works well, then it's like, why would you change it? You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. And when I first started out, too, one of the issues with it was that I was still working a regular job. So it wasn't convenient for me to have someone tell me, okay, well, we want you to be at this convention or at this conference on this day. And I'm thinking, but I am going to have to go right back to work right after. And that's not going to work out well. So, yeah, there were a lot of things like that that really steered me more towards being independent. And then that said, too, you don't have as much support when you're independent because you're doing everything yourself. But on the other hand, I look at it this way. Since the finished product is going to have my name on it anyway, I might as well make all the decisions, for good or for ill. I would rather, if there's a mistake or if there's something that could have been done better, that at least I can say, well, it wasn't because I gave, Jane so-and-so authority over it. At least I made my mistake and I learned from it.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
Well, the thing about marketing, too, is it's changing so quickly. I always tell people to read and research as much as possible. That said, one of the things that has really helped me was joining author groups, particularly some of the ones on Facebook, and getting to talk to other authors and seeing what worked for them and what didn't. It's really saved a lot of heartache for me when it comes to, say, how do people set up certain Amazon ads? Where do they go to find the best ads and, the best companies that they can work with to market some things? And sometimes it's just a cautionary tale of, oh, don't do this. I sunk $3,000 into this platform and it didn't work out. So it's been very helpful to talk to other people and see what they're trying that works, what they tried that didn't work, and just all the things in between. I think any author's marketing plan is very unique to them and what they're doing. So if you can look into a mix of different things and play with them a bit, that's usually where you get your best results.
Now, these author groups on Facebook, are they specific like masterminds or support groups? What would you consider them to be categorized as?
I would consider them to be support groups. There's things like masterminds. There's ones like 20 books to 50K. Just different groups where writers will talk about what they're using that has helped them or not. And not necessarily just these ones where you go on and it's a specific one person giving out their advice, but just people talking in general, saying, hey, did you use KDP Rocket? Where did you find it? Did it work out for you? Did it not? What did you like about it? And because the funny thing about it is there's a lot of resources to be found with other authors, but we tend to be people that stay behind our screens all day actually working on the product, but you really need to get out there in the community just a little bit to get some of your best marketing tips, in my opinion.
So for those that are looking to find these type of author support groups, what would you recommend that they do? Obviously, then they're going to need to go on Facebook, but what things should they be searching for specifically to be able to find these type of author support groups?
I would say, well, just look, first of all, start off with author support groups on Facebook, but probably even stronger than that, I would say that you need to talk to other writers. And, it doesn't necessarily have to be a critique group, but get some friends that are writers. Find out what their challenges may be, because a lot of the times people have similar challenges. I have never been a person that particularly likes critiquing groups, just for the fact that you end up having a bunch of people sort of editing each other's work. And really that's what my editor and my beta readers are for, is to give me that first feedback, is the way I look at it. But you don't want to get caught up in, drama or silliness online with people. Of course you want to avoid that. But I think if you can work with people on some projects, if you can get involved in actually, I've not only marketing, but, writing with other people occasionally, and have a few friends that are interested in the business and have their toe in it as well and know what's going on, that will help you. And it's a difficult task for most writers because a lot of us are sort of introverted people, unfortunately. Even though we are asked to put out the public face and go to conventions and things like that, but you really do need to become a part of that whole group of people a little bit, so that you can know what's going on in the industry and what's about to change, and how you're going to need to change to adapt with it.
Yeah, that is great advice, and I appreciate you sharing that, because that is one of the things you do have to get out of your comfort zone. Now, people ask me all the time, it's like, well, you're the biggest extrovert around. I was like, no, I'm not. I am half introvert and half extrovert, and you do have to
Right.
get out of that comfort zone.
Yeah, you do, because otherwise you won't know what's going on. You won't be able to see the changes coming. Once you kind of get into that community a little bit, you usually find out about things that are shifting a little bit before it happens. So that really does help, having your ear to the ground, so to speak. And not only that, but writers in general, we're kind of strange people. Everybody does not sort of connect with us. So you're going to need to have, a few writer friends at least that you can talk to about what's going on, whether it be, some sort of struggle with your book, or maybe not finding ads that are working well with what you're putting out. Those kind of things, other people can be helpful with. And sometimes it's just the whole thing of having a buddy to say, oh, yeah, I know. I went through that last month with my last release, too, because people tend to shrug that off and think it's not important, but actually it really is.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So, what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
I had to really think long and hard about that because I have so many favorite books. But if I have to really narrow it down, my very favorite is a book called My Soul to Keep by Tanner Dew. Um, I would say the thing that it really taught me was that you can bend genres and you can add new points of view to a story that will make it fresh. Because when you think about it, there's only so many stories out there. There's everything comes to some kind of archetype, you know. And as writers, we're always trying to put that fresh, innovative spin on something and make it intriguing to a reader, so that, for instance, you might have read, I don't know, 400 ghost stories, but you want your ghost story to have something about it that grabs the person and makes them go, oh, well, this is interesting. I never quite thought about it this way. So this book, it has immortals in it. It has people who are living around these creatures and don't know it. There's all kinds of intrigue going on. There's sort of a thriller feel to it, so that if you were somebody that liked a procedural or you like murder mysteries, you would probably appreciate the book. It also, of course, has that speculative fiction edge that I like, and it was really the first book that made me think about, okay, so if I were to promote a book, what kind of, more than just what specific genre would it be in, but what would be the things that I would like to do to make a story of mine different. So for that reason, I'm going to say that's my favorite book.
Excellent. And for our final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
I thought about it, and one of my favorite quotes is from Nelson Mandela, and it says, "It always seems impossible until it's done." And I think that is just such a good quote for life in general, because a lot of the things that we try to do, you struggle with yourself about whether you're going to be able to do it or not, or how you're going to handle it, or could this be done? And a lot of times we look back and say, oh, I didn't think I could do that at the time, but somehow I did it. So I think it's a good, optimistic point of view to always have that, yeah, it feels like it's impossible, but it's really not.
Absolutely. Well, Lori, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Okay, you can find me on my blog. It's called The Darkest of Lore. It's at loribeth215.wordpress.com. All of my work is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and iTunes. And I also have a Twitter account, which is loribeth215.
All right, Lori, I want to thank you again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to talk with you today.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.